So without any further ado, let's welcome Jerome Corsi.
And do we have some water? I might want to get a water.
Certainly
Get one. Okay, great. It's good to be with you tonight. Thank you. Let's see if we can get the slides here to work. The first one was this one is the first one I want. This is tonight I'm going to present to you what I've been working on as a new book. You're getting to see the first beginnings of it. This is an electronic book right now at ObamaNation2, the number 2.com. And I'm holding here, and this video, you see also on the screen, the original Abomination, which I wrote in 2008. And that book was #1 New York Times bestseller. And it predicted that Obama would be what he is today, widely recognized as. I think I was one of the first to say he was a socialist, raised as a Marxist. His religion was Islam when he was a child, brought to Indonesia by his stepfather. I pointed out that he would reduce the military security in the United States, that he basically was in the leftist hate America crowd. I predicted that we would have greater racial tension, and he might have the beginnings of a race war, and that economically the United States would be weakened under his spending. The spending is actually, I think, will have double the deficit we did in the end of the Bush era by the time Barack Obama leaves office. And I do believe he's going to leave office, and I'll try to explain why as we go along. But I'm going to show you some things that I think that are going to be probably pretty shocking to you, because this Abomination 2 is the next level of revelations that the American people are really not ready to process yet. When I wrote The Abomination, they said it was lies. Everyone, ridiculed the book. They said we made things up. But today, if you go back and look at The Abomination, you'll be surprised at how many of the things that I first introduced, including things that Dinesh D'Souza has expanded on, this colonial rage that Obama got from the Kenyan Barack Obama. And I don't think the Kenyan Barack Obama was Barack Obama's father. I've never thought that was the case. And I'll try to explain that as we go along, too. Now, to begin with, I think I want you first to understand, is everyone aware of this hand signal that is a satanic signal? Okay? It's an occult symbol that's widely recognized as an occult symbol. It's very hard to do with your hands. You have to put the middle two fingers rolled into your palm, and then you take the index finger and your little finger and you make horns out of them. And the thumb can either be wave-free or included, but it's a horns symbol, and hence it stands for Satan. And it's widely understood that this is a satanic sign. Now I'm going to show you a set of pictures that usually people have not seen, even though they're out in the public. They're common. It's not like Barack Obama does this once or twice. It's all over the place. Meetings with Biden during the campaigning of 2012. And Michelle Obama does it. Look at her right hand and the index fingers there. It's very subtle there. But here, look at her left hand. The satanic symbol, I'm not even going to show you what it looks like with my hand, because I think it's, antichrist to even represent this kind of a figure, let alone to have our president and first lady openly displaying Satan and communicating with others who know Satan, and this is the symbol, in public view, done frequently. Now this symbol, you can see Barack Obama's got his right index finger pointed up. You see that, everyone? Okay, and he's walking past the Muslim delegations at a leaders' summit. That symbol is the symbol for Allah is God. It means I am Muslim. It's another hidden hand symbol. He's not just walking by and saying hello. He's walking by and saying, I am one of you. He also does this all the time. There's dozens of photographs of Obama doing this in meetings. I don't think I have to explain that one to anyone. Now, this is somebody you probably haven't seen before. Anyone know who this is? This is a guy named Subud, S-U-B-U-D. He's Indonesian. He came out of the MK Ultra CIA mind control experiments, and he created a cult. The cult is the cult of Subud. It's a meditation cult, and it's big in Indonesia, Hawaii, and Chicago. I mean, if you take a look at that, and I would think most people would say immediately, that's Barack Obama. I mean, look at how, that's another picture of Subud. I mean, this is, I'm trying to show you that, and I'm going to try to explain here that it's common knowledge that the Kenyan Barack Obama is not the biological father of Barack Obama. There's no way it's possible. It was not even considered so at the time. And when you look at this kind of a picture, and you realize that genetics don't lie, you here have a CIA creation who's created a cult. These photographs were taken in the 50s. The cult began in the 50s, 60s. And probably, and I'll maintain that the biological mother of Barack Obama was probably his daughter or in the line of his family, but certainly those physical resemblances are there. Now, this is a Seattle newspaper report from, it's produced by this is a publication of the Greater Seattle Subud Organization, a non-sectarian spiritual worldwide association for meditation. And it's saying that their sister, Diliana Fuddy, died in a plane crash off the coast of Molokai, and this is in December 2013. Now, Fuddy, whose name was Loretta Fuddy, Diliana Fuddy is her Subud name, was the assistant director. She was actually in charge of the Hawaii Department of Health and was the person who verified Obama's birth certificate released by the White House was legitimate, even though it was a computer printout, which did not exist as a birth certificate in 1961. And she ends up, we find out when she dies, in the suspicious plane crash, just after Obama is reelected, in that year, she dies in this plane crash off of Molokai. We find out she was a member of Subud. Okay, that is Loretta Fuddy, the one on the, the one you're seeing clearly in the red blouse. She is the regional helper, a member of the Subud faith. Diliana Fuddy, right, meditates at one of the group's meetings at the Richard Street YMCA, which is in Honolulu. So it was obvious and known that she was a member of this cult. Guess who else was a member of the Subud cult? That's Ann Dunham, Barack Obama's mother. And when she was in Indonesia, it's part of the untold story of her biography, is that she was widely associated with Subud. This is again out of the Subud voice, and it says basically that she remembers this person writing this testimony, that in fact, our Subud sister, Mrs. Fuddy, was appointed to her post in the health department in Hawaii in time to be involved in the documentation of the fact that Obama was born there. And that Ann Dunham, is quoted in this biography, A Singular Woman, which was done as a biography of Ann Dunham, the mother of Obama, the woman holding Obama. the alleged mother, was also deeply associated with Subud. Remember, she was an anthropologist, and she studied in Indonesia and married an Indonesian who was member of the Indonesian military and military intelligence, brought Obama to Indonesia right in the height of the coup that was killing Sukarno, in which the CIA and the United States participated in killing 500,000 communists. And Christians were killed left and right in this whole slaughter. But yet Obama and his mother were treated as royalty, Subud members, CIA connected in Indonesia, with Obama being raised as a Muslim. Now on the left, you can see that's Barack Obama Sr., the Kenyan with the eyeglasses. Now, first of all, you just take a look at the physical resemblances. He really doesn't look anything at all like Barack Obama. He is a Luo tribe member. They tend to have rounded heads, sloped foreheads, very, very dark. And even the physical features don't look at all like the president. The gentleman on the right is Frank Marshall Davis. Frank Marshall Davis was a communist journalist from Chicago who went to Hawaii in the 50s and was the person that Barack Obama in Hawaii told his friends he thought was his real father. Okay, now Frank Marshall Davis was a notorious guy. Frank Marshall Davis wrote an autobiographic pornographic novel. He used to spend his latter years in Hawaii combing the beaches for white women that were vacationing alone to try to pick them up for sex. He ran prostitutes in Hawaii, was a drunkard, and Barack Obama spent a lot of time with him and writes about him in his autobiography, Dreams from My Father, as his mentor. A total communist ideology, and if you read the pornographic novel, which I've had to do to report on it, you find out that Frank Marshall Davis was also homosexual. In fact, I think he had sex with just about anything that moved. And Barack Obama and Frank Marshall Davis certainly there's a poem that Barack Obama wrote that suggests he and Frank Marshall Davis may have had sex when he was a kid. And if you go back to looking at Subud, who looks more like Barack Obama? This guy, or the guy on the left wearing glasses? Well, I think that case is pretty clear. And here's another picture where you can see, again, the similarities between Frank Marshall Davis. These photographs, it's a little bit hard to see, but if you can look closely, Frank Marshall Davis had dark kind of skin pigmentation spots on his face. Barack Obama has the identical skin pigmentation spots. And very similar complexion. The Barack Obama on the left, the African Kenyan Barack Obama, has no such facial characteristics. And those are typically genetic characteristics. Also, you can see there's the mole on Barack Obama's face, and Frank Marshall Davis had a slight mole that was very similar. The pencil kind of thin mustache that they both have. And the physical similarities, I think, as Barack Obama ages and gains some weight, if he does, will be even more clear. Now, this is a form that was filled out by Barack Obama, the Kenyan, in August 1961, within days of when Barack Obama, the child, was born and registered supposedly as his son. This is an application to extend his temporary visa to continue his education at the University of Hawaii. He says he's a student, and the interesting thing about this is when they ask him, he says he's married to Ann Dunham. You'll see that number right there, the cross out. He crossed something out, Then he remembered, oh yes, it was Ann Dunham he's married to, so he writes that in. And then the next line says, if married, give the name and addresses of children. Well, he forgets he has a son that was only born a few days before this application was filled out. Now, is there anyone in this room who ever forgot they had a son or daughter weeks after the son or daughter was born? I mean, it's not credible that this is the case. And you can see the full application. You can see that he wanted to extend his stay into 62. He signed it 1961, and the baby was born, I believe, in August 4th, 1961. So the end of the month when Barack Obama Jr. is born, or Barack Obama II, the Kenyan father forgets that he has them. Now, there are some pictures in here that are missing from what we had that I gave you that we didn't get into the file, and I don't know if they're, oh, here we are. This airplane, this Molokai airplane. Now, so, okay, what I'm showing you is that the original documentation of Barack Obama is that it's unlikely the Kenyan was the father. In fact, the Immigration Naturalization Service said, and put in the record, that if Barack Obama tries to claim that he has a Hawaiian wife and a Hawaiian child as the basis to extend his visa stay or to apply to become a permanent resident, the Immigration Naturalization Service was going to challenge it. Because Barack Obama Sr., the Kenyan, and Ann Dunham, the supposed mother, didn't ever share a common address. And within 2 or 3 weeks of when the baby was born, Ann Dunham takes the baby to Seattle and enrolls at the University of Seattle in nighttime courses. We have where she stayed, we have the testimony of the babysitter. When Ann Dunham arrived, she saw one of her best friends from high school at Mercer Island and didn't know how to change a diaper. Now, is there any mother or father here, child, I mean, one of the first things you learn is how to change a diaper, because that's an immediate necessity. And it's a continuing, infant babies don't do much more than eat, sleep, and need their diapers changed, occasionally punctuated by massive crying. And your full-time attention, they give you the baby, put it in your arms, it's a wonderful experience. You go home and you say, now what are we going to do? You figure it out pretty soon. And you don't take your brand new baby from Hawaii to Seattle without your mother when you're going to enroll full-time in school and put this baby infant with a babysitter who supposedly you've never met. What I'm suggesting is that this entire relationship, that Ann Dunham was the mother and that Barack Obama Sr. was the likely father, was probably fictitious. And I think, and I'm going to try to explain to you, there's a CIA thread here. I think the CIA from the 50s and 60s were thinking and planning. See, the CIA, many people think, is a conservative organization. The CIA wants to be on all sides of all games, because what the CIA wants to do is stay in power. And if they think in 1961 that maybe projecting forward to 2004, 2008, an African American communist might get elected because of the changes going on and what the CIA knew the KGB was doing and the various movements on civil rights and where that was headed. I mean, much of what, and I've written about this extensively, including in Abomination, another book, American for Sale, that we've largely had the American left following the communist KGB playbook since the 1950s, trying to undermine our educational system, trying to undermine religion, trying to get same-sex relationships, destroy families. This entire agenda did not happen by accident. And I'm suggesting that if Barack Obama was one of the candidates that might have emerged in a CIA effort to get one of its African American communists elected president, he was emerging as a likely candidate. And by the way, Barack Obama is really not traditionally African American in the sense of descended from slaves or those who came from Africa in the early parts of the U.S. history. Barack Obama, if he came from the Kenyan, was really a recent addition from Africa with a white mother. That's the story, biracial, but certainly not in the traditional sense of African American. This airplane was the one that Fuddy was killed in. There's the crash. The plane, as you can see, was off the shore of Molokai and was floating. That's a better picture of the plane when it went down. The engine failed. Now, everybody got out of the airplane. I think there were a total of 8 people in the airplane, including the pilot. They were able to put on life vests. They were floating. The plane did not sink immediately, and the water is very shallow. You can see that's the airport it took off from. So it took off from that airport, gained some altitude, the engine failed, and close to the shore, the pilot landed it into the water, and it stayed afloat. When the plane came out, and by the way, Fuddy, who was seen alive with a life vest on as one of the people who got out of the airplane, was the only one who died. She died, and they said it was a heart attack, even though there's testimony she was breathing. When the airplane was salvaged, I got photographs. These have never been published before. We were able to obtain them. The plane, when it was brought up, even though it went down whole, was brought up and crushed, broken apart, the experts say, by a mechanical machine that breaks the airplanes apart, and crushed. Now, why would you do that except to destroy the evidence of the airplane? Because after this, there's no real, this is done before there's a investigation of the causes of the crash. So you have in this process a mysterious death of a woman who was the person who knew the true situation of Barack Obama's birth certificate. And I assure you that if they had a 1961 birth certificate intact that was legitimate, why would you release a computer printout that Loretta Fuddy had to say, oh, I'll verify, as the director of the Department of Health, that it corresponds with information we have in our files that you can't see. And then her knowledge of what was really in the files died with her in this crash, conveniently. All right, the only one who verified that she had seen the original documents. Now, I want to shift a little bit into a deeper theme, Obama being Islam. There's a picture of Barack Obama and his grandparents when he was attending, this is in New York City, supposedly when he was attending Columbia. And by the way, I think the photo is photoshopped. I think Obama was inserted into the middle of that picture. You can see his, these are his grandparents, whom I also believe were most likely intelligence related. They came from Kansas. He fought in World War II in Patton's command. When they came back from World War II, they moved to every location, which were the locations of the B-29 being produced. And the Russians had some B-29s, which had landed after bombing, had been damaged in the bombing of Japan. And this, I believe, was a mission that they were on, the grandparents, to get the plans of the B-29 over to Russia. The grandmother worked in the Bank of Hawaii and had access to Social Security numbers and could easily have looked for Barack Obama to have a convenient Social Security number. Now, if you look at his left hand and the ring finger, I want you to see that he appears to have a wedding ring on. Now, this is before Barack Obama. This picture would have been taken, you see, Barack Obama was born in 1961. So if we go forward and say 17 or 18 years, by 1980, he's now with this wedding ring he's wearing. He isn't married to anybody. When I first started seeing these pictures, and here's one of him in Africa. This is 1986, I believe. And again, look to see that left hand, you can see the wedding ring. Okay, it's a little blurry, but you can see the gold on that band. Everybody see it? Here he is at Occidental, which is the college he went to first before Columbia. And you can see there in his left hand, again, the wedding ring. And you can notice it has a very distinctive design. It's got little bands to it. If you look closely, you can see those. You see it, the little bands on this ring? It's got a very distinctive design. And there are a lot of pictures from both Occidental and the Harvard Law School, which Barack Obama went to after Columbia. And these pictures, here's a picture in the Harvard Law Library, and you can see again the ring that Barack Obama is clearly wearing. And you see the ring not only has bands on it, but it's got a flatter surface in it. It's very intricate design. These are the famous, smoking dope photographs that Barack Obama had one of his friends take when he was at Occidental. The ring is again very obvious in these pictures. You can see it there. These are the ones when he was smoking dope. At Harvard, they do every year a mock Harvard Law Journal, a joke issue, and this was a doer's profile, D-O-E-R-S, doer. Well, remember the doer's scotch in this era was always running doers' profiles of doers' drinkers, say how cool they were to be scotch drinkers. Well, here they say that Barack Obama is a doer's profile. His age is extraordinarily mature. Now, remember, this is a satire. They're making fun of him. His occupation, first African-American president of a major law review published outside of New Haven, Yale. Okay, now you get down to what they're saying on this, and they say, let's see, his scotch, etc. Latest accomplishments. Faking macho sports industries to ensure election. Linking, limiting body meetings to 2.5 hours. And then deflecting persistent questioning about ring on left hand. Okay, so even at Harvard, this ring was a mystery because they knew he wasn't married and he wasn't explaining to anybody what the ring was all about. So everybody say, Brock, what's this deal with the ring? You aren't married. Why are you wearing the ring? And he deflects the answers. He won't tell anybody. You can see it right there. Limiting body meetings to 2.5 hours, deflecting persistent questioning about ring on left hand. That's a close-up of that page. Now, this is a close-up of the ring. So when I realized he was wearing a ring, my first recognition is, why is Barack Obama wearing a wedding ring when he's not married? I thought maybe this is one of the homosexual symbols that he had a boyfriend. And I started saying, let's get a look at this ring. There's another look at the ring and its design. This is the ring in the White House. Early picture in the White House. And you can see the ring has kind of a snake form there, and there's bands to this ring. There's another one, you can see the bands. This ring, he said, was an Indonesian ring. And he said he bought it when he got married to Michelle, which is obviously not true because he'd been wearing it for years before he married Michelle. There he is in the White House with the ring. Another one with the ring. It's kind of like the hand symbols. There's a lot of pictures. Now, we had this analyzed, and what we realized was that the ring really was designed carrying Arabic script. And this is fairly common in Indonesia among Muslims. And the text on the right, as you can see, translated, is one of the key prayers in Islam, which is, there is no God except Allah, which is what's written on the ring. Well, no wonder he didn't want to explain it to anyone. That symbol, that first line, this is a prayer called the Shahada. It's got about two basic phrases to it, but the first is, there is no God but Allah. And you see that, what looks like, reading right to left, an I and a W and kind of an O, that top line. Well, look back to the top line and the text on the bottom, where you've got the same kinds of letters. And remember, Arabic script can be written in a lot of different versions, but this is there is no God but Allah. That's the Shahada in the ISIS flag. That's the ISIS flag. Okay, and if you look on the right of the door, you can see the I and the W and the kind of O, there is no God but Shahada. This is a picture taken in Benghazi the day after the compound was burned and Ambassador Stevens was killed. And the vandals coming in wrote the Shahada on the door, on the wall next to the door of this compound where 4 Americans were killed the night before. So you can basically see how important this prayer is to Islam. It's core enough to be represented there. It's core enough to be worn by Obama throughout this period of time, including White House, obviously no hiding of it, back through Harvard, back through Occidental, back through, again, Harvard Law School this entire time. And you can clearly see it's the same ring. Okay, now, as you realize this, as soon as we started publishing this in WND, they sent the ring out for repair. And when it came back, the prayer was gone. They obscured the design and said it was never there. This is a picture of Barack Obama at that wedding with Malik Obama. That's his stepbrother. See how close they are. Malik Obama was Barack Obama's best man at the wedding. This is Malik Obama in 2008 when Obama's running for office, and he's showing a picture from 1986 when Barack Obama was there, and Barack Obama is wearing traditional Muslim garb. That's the whole point of that picture. Barack Obama and the family, he's just another one of the Muslims in the family. The entire family is Muslim. Malik has now become disaffected from Barack Obama. He's coming back into the United States. In fact, he'll be back next week. He's trying to sell memorabilia. He has about 10 wives. He was running money in Egypt for the Muslim Brotherhood and has been indicted as a terrorist. He was running money for terrorists in Sudan. He scandalously married one of the very young, almost pre-teenage girls, and the mother says he's been abusing her as one of his 10 wives, and he needs money. Thought Barack Obama was going to provide him money because he can't take care of all these wives. There's Malik meeting with Barack Obama in the White House. Okay, and Malik has created the Barack H. Obama Foundation, which Lois Lerner at the IRS granted a retroactive determination letter because he was raising money illegally with a foundation that had never properly been identified and accepted as a 501c3. When we pointed it out, Lois Lerner wrote a letter backdating the approval, which is completely illegal, to grandfather the period of time in which he was raising money, using the Kenyan Barack Obama, who is the father of Malik by a different mother. This is what you find in tracing Muslim families, is that half-brothers, half-sisters are common because from one father there's many mothers. And exploiting this father, the Barack Obama Sr., to raise money, the purpose of this foundation, which is stated to help people in Africa, was diverted by Malik to keep his wives in a hotel near their traditional home. He used the money to take care of his family. Now, I want to go back to a couple pictures. It's a little bit out of order, but I want to go back to a picture that I put in earlier. It may take, I think it was just before these fuddy pictures. Yes. We found an article that was published in 1979 in the St. Petersburg Independent. And it was written by Vernon Jarrett. Does anyone know who Vernon Jarrett is? Well, he is the father-in-law, I believe, of Valerie Jarrett, who is in the White House. Okay, so he is in a direct line to Valerie Jarrett, and he was a radical in the 70s, again, at least socialist. And what he is writing is that the Arab states have put together in OPEC funds to help African American kids be sponsored by Muslims in Saudi Arabia in order to get their education completed in the United States. And he says the first indications of Arab help to American blacks may be announced in December 1979, said Khalid Abdullah Tariq al-Mansour, formerly known as Don Warden of the Holmes and Warden law firm, formerly known as a notorious Black Panther. Okay, now, when we researched how Obama got into Harvard Law School, because remember, you can't get Obama's grades, you can't get his applications to the schools, he won't tell you who financed his education. There was a video done of a guy named Percy Sutton, a very famous attorney. He was interviewed on television in 2008 in Harlem. He was an attorney who had roots back to Malcolm X. Everybody in Harlem knew Percy Sutton. He was a very, very famous attorney. And he said that one day he got a phone call from al-Mansour saying that there was this kid, Barack Obama, that he wanted to sponsor in Harvard Law School, and would Percy Sutton please write a letter to Harvard Law School to get Barack Obama accepted. Well, Percy Sutton didn't know Barack Obama, but he wrote the letter because this was part of the network that they were in. And the most likely indication is that Barack Obama's education at Harvard was sponsored by Arab money from Saudi Arabia through al-Mansour, with Vernon Jarrett involved. And somehow, surprisingly, Valerie Jarrett today emerges as the top advisor in the White House. With her roots, and Valerie Jarrett was born in Iran. She was born in Iran, I believe Shiraz, Iran, in a Namazi hospital. Namazi was a family, a Muslim family from Iran, that going back into the 1890s funded the opium trade in China. Namazi created the hospital. Namazi's son, Hassan Namazi, is now in U.S. federal prison for bank fraud. Hassan Namazi was also John Kerry's top fundraiser in 2004, and Hillary Clinton's fundraiser in 2008. So if you wonder why Kerry and all the others are so favorable towards Iran, you've got to go look at these ties that involve all of the networks that lead back ultimately to the opium trade. And the opium trade, you have any idea who created the opium trade? Created by British intelligence. It was one of their plans to control sea lanes and control China. Now, anyone know who this gentleman is? John Brennan. And what he does today? He's head of the CIA. Now, John Brennan ran a security firm, an intelligence private security firm that in 2008 did a break-in the State Department records and stole, guess what? Barack Obama's passport records. They're missing, and they've been tied to this theft. John Brennan emerges in the White House as National Security Advisor, and then is promoted to head the CIA. I maintain that John Brennan has been one of Barack Obama's CIA handlers for a long time. And John Brennan just happens to have spent much of his career in the State Department, just happens to have spent it in Islamic countries, just happens to speak fluent Arabic, and is widely believed to have converted to Islam. He's given many speeches, which I've written about and quoted, in which he praises Islam. And by the way, if you get a chance to go to the White House for a Christmas dinner or a Ramadan dinner, choose the Ramadan dinner. You get a lot better fed. These ties, I think, go throughout the entire structure of who Barack Obama is, and it goes, the intelligence ties in his past, I think, are what, in fact, has determined Barack Obama's career. I think there were others the CIA was equally cultivating, that if Barack Obama didn't emerge, they had other candidates. Now, I'm going to play a video that we just published at WND. It's the one of the demon. We could only get it to be on the internet, so it may be a little tricky, but can you cue that up and see if we can play this video? You'll have to watch it, maybe you have to play it a couple times, but this is the video when Barack Obama lands in Kenya recently, and we published it in WND because if you look closely, it appears to have a demon flashing across the screen. Okay, can we play the video? Are you able to cue it up? This is what it looks like in a screen capture. That cloud there races past the screen and is unexplained as to why it occurs. Any way to play that video? If we get it, we'll just interrupt here. Whenever you're able to cue it up, if you can, let's play it. I'm going to be turning back to some of the original themes. Can we go back to the slides then if we can't get the video to play? Can we go back to the slides? I'm going to show you a series. I'm going to return to the Satan theme because there's a series of pictures and videos where Barack Obama has been constantly plagued by flies, as in Beelzebub, translated Lord of the Flies. And some of these pictures are remarkable. Here we are, Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. You see the fly on Barack Obama's forehead. Well, this is not this was he was speaking at the state dining room of the White House when a fly lands between his eyes. Here's another one. He's trying to wave away a fly that disturbed him again in the state dining room of the White House in 2013. Another one, he swats at the fly in the East Room on June 22nd, 2010 in Washington. There you can see very easily the pigmentation spots on his face and the mole by his nose and the kind of pencil-thin mustache that he has, all of which are characteristics in Frank Marshall Davis. Here's the fly over by his left eye. This was when he was trying to give a national health care. We're giving a national address on Obamacare. And if you recall, in the TV series, Satan, this is the Bible TV miniseries, bore a remarkable resemblance to Barack Obama. Now, we have one more video. Can you play the other video? Can we cue that up?
Hey, get out of here.
That's the most persistent fly I've ever seen. Nice.
Now, where were we? That was pretty impressive, wasn't it? I got it. I got the sucker. What do you think, Gibbs?
That is very good. It's on. It's right there.
It's right there. You want to film that? There it is.
Okay, want to play that one? This happened during a CNBC interview in the White House, and Barack Obama is shooing the fly and trying to catch it. Play it one more time, if you can.
Hey, get out of here.
That's the most persistent fly I've ever seen. Nice.
Now, where were we? That was pretty impressive, wasn't it? I got it. I got the sucker. What do you think, Gibbs?
That is very good. It's on. It's right there.
It's right there. You want to film that? There it is.
Will the other video play now? Can you get the other video to play? I can't see the screen. Is it playing? Okay. Well, did you see the first one? No. All right, well, the first one...
Jacob, when do you leave for school?
This is a commercial, I guess.
3 weeks, or like
Can you see this one?
3.5
Okay.
weeks.
What's going on, Ava?
Can you see it now? Okay, that's a commercial before it, I think. Isn't it? Oh, here we go.
Hear me out.
Here we go. Now you're going to have to watch this one closely when it... Can you skip the ad? Yeah, there we go. This is the landing in Kenya. Watch the figure now. See it kind of racing by? Some of those are... There we go. Okay, play that again. Some of the initial things are the flashing of bulbs. Here it's playing again. Those are flash bulbs, you see, flashlights from the photographs. Now watch, you'll see, there's the demon. See the demon race by? Okay, try it one more time. Everybody can get a chance to see it. Okay, see if you can play the other one if in the White House with the... See one more time. Here it comes now. Okay, let's play the other one if we can on the... If you can cue that one up. This is remarkable. This is just recently taken. We were surprised. We got it at WND. We analyzed it. Clearly, there's something unexplainable racing across the screen as he lands in Kenya. And the themes, I think, of Barack Obama having the Islam as hidden symbols, the Muslim identification, the Satan identification embraced in the hand signals. These are messages which the average American person is not expected to get. They're hidden messages to devil worshippers, to those who are in Islam. Islam would recognize that ring. Those who read Arabic would see the Shahada. And wearing it all these rings these years, it's a secret communication. That, in fact, I am one of you. The finger pointing up in the symbol, there is only one God but Allah, as he passes the Muslim members of the Leaders Summit. Now, I think if I want to kind of conclude this part of the presentation and tell you what I'm going to do tomorrow in the breakout session, I've maintained from the beginning that Barack Obama is a fictional person. Okay, now look, just look at the things we don't know about Barack Obama. He never lived with the Kenyan father, who didn't put down that he had a son in his visa application. The mother and father never lived together. There's no record of Ann Dunham ever giving birth to a baby in any hospital in Hawaii. I've researched this extensively. Frank Marshall Davis emerges as this mentor figure. Obama claims to his schoolmates, "That's my real dad." The physical resemblance is very similar. The woman who hides the birth certificate from public view dies in this crash, turns out to be a member of Subud, and we researched Subud. Subud does look like Obama. And the backstory that I was told in Hawaii, hiring private investigators and the like, was in 1961, Frank Marshall Davis was a frequenter of Bill Lederer's bar. Bill Lederer was a famous author. He's the co-author of The Ugly American. He was a Navy officer who wrote a famous Officer Ensign something or other book that became very well known in the 60s. He owned a bar in Hawaii on Hotel Street, which was the street of the prostitutes in Hawaii. And Bill Lederer's bar was frequented by U.S. intelligence, the CIA, Lansdale, who was one of the early operatives wanting to create a war in either Indonesia or Vietnam, going back to the 50s. This bar, Bill Lederer's bar, was also frequented by the KGB and Indonesian intelligence. And the bar was a frequent meeting place for prostitutes. The story was that Ann Dunham was very rebellious in the years she was brought to Hawaii by her parents, the grandparents supposedly of Barack Obama, and worked as a prostitute in that bar. Knew Frank Marshall Davis, who worked in that bar with his prostitutes and probably had a relationship with him. But also there were Indonesian female prostitutes working that bar, whom I'm sure also Frank Marshall Davis had as his consorts. So the point is, there is a birth mystery at the heart of Obama, and we do not have the documentation to sort it out, because we cannot see the original documents. They're either hidden or gone. And in Hawaii, birth certificates have been issued since the beginning of Hawaii as a U.S. territory to people who are not born in Hawaii. Japanese frequently were being brought back to fight in Japan if they were born in Japan at the beginning of World War II, and Hawaii issued many of them Hawaiian birth certificates. It was a common practice in Hawaii. Barack Obama most likely could have had a birth certificate issued if the grandparents simply went and applied for it without documentation that he'd been in a hospital, without even showing the baby. And the mother, Ann Dunham, seems to have no real attachment to this baby. Leaves the baby when she's in Indonesia doing her graduate school work, takes the baby with her to go to graduate school and University of Washington without any clear idea that she knows anything about this baby. No pictures of her pregnant, and the Immigration and Naturalization Service not believing the story that these two produced that child. Then he shows up at all these schools, goes to Punahou, exclusive school where he mostly just smokes dope and does cocaine. Works in an ice cream, Baskin-Robbins ice cream shop. No one can find his Social Security number. Ends up with a Social Security number that was issued in Connecticut, a state he'd never been in. Okay, draft records that Joe Arpaio cold case posse proved was a draft registration that had been faked. Then he comes to all these schools. He gets into Occidental. No one knows how, who paid for it. Columbia, I got the research records from the service that documents college attendance. Barack Obama was listed for only 1 year at Columbia. As soon as I published this in WND, they said, oh, it's a mistake. They changed the record to say 2 years. No one at Columbia seems to remember Barack Obama being there. He shows up at Harvard, and again, except for this Al Mansour connection with Percy Sutton, we wouldn't know that it ties into the money that was being raised by Arabs to put these kids through school. So what you have is someone who is president whom we truly don't know who he is. And from all the physical signs, we're going to judge by the fruit of the tree, we see him indicating affinity for Satan and wearing a ring that identifies him with Islam and presenting a persona to the world that he's a Christian. And I'd see few and far between any indications that Barack Obama had any comprehension of Christianity or any tie to Christianity. The ties all seem deeply into Islam and into supporting the most radical forces in Islam in the Middle East. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to show you even one more level of the shocking information. I'm going to take up what Joan Rivers said and show you the evidence for it, namely that Barack Obama, I believe, is homosexual. And what Joan Rivers also maintained was that Michelle Obama is a transvestite. Now, as shocking or bizarre as that may seem, I'm going to show you why people come to these conclusions. And the evidence can't just be dismissed. Okay, I'm not saying that there's, Barack Obama has not come out and declared that he's homosexual, although he said his position has evolved on same-sex marriage. And David Axelrod, in his most recent book published, said that's nonsense. Barack Obama was always in support of same-sex marriage. I'm going to show you why in Chicago they called him Bathhouse Barry. And I'll show you enough about Michelle in terms of physical characteristics that have been documented that when you see the pictures I hope to present tomorrow, they're going to be videos again, you'll begin to see a whole different way of looking at Michelle. Now, I want to conclude with why I think that Barack Obama will not seek to stay in office or to cause a crisis, declare martial law, and extend into a third term. Why? Because I think the CIA has already made a decision that he's done his job. He did what he was assigned to do, which is what I was writing about in 2008. He's weakened the United States dramatically. We now have a debt crisis that is about to crush the European Union and the United States, and will be, I think, much more severe than the 2008-2009 cycle. You may not realize it, but in the past few days, the stock market has lost 1,000 points and is on the way down in a massive readjustment. Very quickly, we're going to have interest rates increasing because the quantitative easing, the buying of our own debt, has run out of its usefulness. And when interest rates increase, we're going to have a massive recession. And these are widely being predicted today by a large group of financial experts, not just a few. That's coming. Barack Obama set that up by massively spending, doubling the debt. And if you look at the true liabilities of the United States, the obligations that we've created in the future, which a gap accounting, a true accounting would reflect, the number is closer to $100 trillion. There is no way Social Security obligations will ever be paid. Social Security Trust Fund today is nothing more than a notebook that includes treasury bonds because all the money has been stolen and used for other programs. There's no way that Medicare survives. There's no way that Obamacare can be paid. The entitlement program are doomed to collapse. In the middle of the United States being, the demographics being changed, and a fundamental communist principle, if you think about it, is if you change the economics or the demographics, the politics have to change. And so the same-sex marriage issue, which has been attempted to be brought on the American people by desensitizing shows like Will and Grace and all the other efforts to say, these are just two men. You really want to separate these two love puppies? Well, without any mention of what homosexuality involves, or that homosexuality, the goal here is not to produce same-sex marriage. Same-sex couples are rarely monogamous. It's almost a joke to think it is. I mean, yes, there are some, but multiple partners is the common in homosexual relationships. The idea is to destroy the foundation of marriage between a man and woman as a sacrament involved in procreation, and to disassociate sex from having anything to do with procreation or the responsibility to raise children, and say, what difference does it make who the father is? We've seen the impacts on the African American community, where when Daniel Moynihan said in 1965 that the AFDC program, the Aid for Families with Dependent Children, would just cause husbands to leave wives in the black community, families would break up, children would be born out of wedlock. The percentages are startling today of, 3/4 of all children in African American communities born out of wedlock. Teenage pregnancies on the rise. The abortion figures rampant in the African American communities, and AIDS, a silent killer in the black community, where homosexuality, or this, what they call the down low culture, which came out of prisons, is common. And those trends are moving into the majority community, as Daniel Moynihan predicted they would. Family destruction. Barack Obama's moved that agenda far along and even packed the Supreme Court. What do we have now? 3 communist lesbians on the Supreme Court? It's hard to know for sure. Sotomayor, Kagan, and Ginsburg. And the environment in which we are now seeing a race war developing, and communities where we're having increasing Muslims being deposited around the country, the places where Hispanics and Muslims are being relocated or strategically located to turn red states into blue states. Florida is a classic example. And, it's going to be really interesting to see how the U.S. military in the future performs when major issues is the dress code for transvestites in formal parades. And I'm hard-pressed to think of an LGBT military that's ever been successful in the history of the world. Certainly the Nazis tried their effort at it, and it didn't go particularly well. And the destruction of religion, where a secular culture has produced very few people attending church, these are missions that Barack Obama has achieved. Besides freeing ISIS, arming, and Hillary arming, Hillary's one of her major aides, Huma Abedin, who's her lover, Muslim Brotherhood, and funding the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda and shipping arms to Al-Qaeda, which was Chris Stevens' major mission when he came to Benghazi. The point is that Obama's accomplished these goals, and the CIA is going to say, mission accomplished, next. And I don't think Obama, quite frankly, is major interest, I'm sure, continue to be smoking, doing a little bit of marijuana, and showing up in the Oval Office when he feels like it, planning to go on his next trip. If you read his schedule, he's almost always in the air. He doesn't want to sit in the office and work. It's too hard. It's not his goal. The decisions are already made. Valerie Jarrett can run the White House just fine. So the conclusion is, and I'm going to end on this point, that the person we have, the gentleman in the White House, I defy anybody to produce the documentary evidence that conclusively state exactly who he is, and that's intended. Thank you very much.